All right, time to make bread. 666 grams of flour. I chose that number because it's 666. I figured it'd be kind of funny. Let's see how this works out. And so far that number has been pretty productive for me. So I'm doing right around 320 grams of white. And then the balance is wheat. So 320 up to 666 will be wheat. This is King Arthur unbleached wheat flour. This stuff works really well, and I've just been using it since the beginning. I started with King Arthur, and I've kept it, both the white and the wheat. Trying to get it, there we go. Right to 666. And it always, whenever you put 666, it always shows 667. So you just take out a little bit until you get to 666, because it's the principle of the matter. I'm not going to spend all this time doing this and it not be exact, because all the numbers need to be pretty. If you're good to do this and do it consistently, I found the best thing to do is just to keep it consistent and to always know that you have your measurements right. Seeing it dumps up to 667 again, it keeps moving back and forth, which is funny. So if you're on Instagram or TikTok, I'm the same name there as here. All together, Rudy Gardea together. So if you want to see any of this stuff, I actually put out the bread video before I put it out on YouTube. It's usually like a couple of weeks after. Anyway, 452 grams of water. I'm keeping it like right around 72% hydration. A little bit more water will come into this later, just by the sake of my hands. So just mixing it all, just trying to keep the hydration low. I've had better luck, and it just sticks together nicer, and it actually holds better. Meaning it holds together and doesn't just flop out when I'm prepping to bake it, which we'll see that in the later steps. But you just need, I tried to go higher hydration, but I've just run into problems. I think a lot of the problems though were time. I think I let it sit for too long with a higher hydration and more starter. So this is just the autolyse part. So this is just to mix the flour and water together. This is gonna make, just to mix these two together and let it sit. I'm only gonna let it sit for about a half hour. I'm gonna try to just scoop through this process in real time faster than I have. So we'll see. So there we go. Held together pretty good. Now let this sit for about a half hour, and then we'll get into our next steps. Got about a half hour in. It's looking okay. It solidifies more, which is good. Has a little bit, it's a neutral oil, so it doesn't really affect any of the flavor. So let's throw in the salt. This is 15 grams of salt. I just use a sea salt, but it doesn't really matter. I've never tried any other salt than the salt that I normally use, which is just a sea salt. But kosher salt, just like the one with the chick with the umbrella, I forgot what it's called. I think that would work fine too. I just like that. I hate to call it like a raw salt or whatever, but it's like it's like made with seawater. That's what it says on the bag. Who knows? It could just be like scraped off of somebody's foot for all I know. So let's move this salt around in here, get the salt mixed in. Gotta have salt, otherwise you just have a weird, see how you can't really see, I don't know how well it'll pick up on camera, but you see the salt gets stuck in a little pocket, which is fine, that's what happens. But gotta dissolve the salt in this mixture, make sure it's moved all the way around, and yeah, should work well. When I stop feeling little grains of salt, I keep moving it around and then opening it up and just keep touching it, so that way I know the salt, like I'm feeling like larger grains of salt here. Just got to integrate it fully, just like any other recipe. You don't want a pocket of salt when you're making a soup or something. Although that wouldn't happen. Like if you were to cook a steak and it just has like a little circle of salt on the top of it, that would be weird. And it wouldn't taste good. So wait a second. What is 15? 15 is what percentage of 666? 2%. 2% salt. You don't need a lot. So that's 2% salt. So I put my measuring cup here. I'm gonna do 100, maybe 110 grams of starter. Starter looks real good. I fed it about 6 hours ago. Between 6 and 8 hours seems to be my sweet spot. So I've had pretty good luck there. Zero this sucker out. I also didn't put a lot of water because the starter is a bit wetter than I've been doing it with. Normally I'll do a pretty dry starter. Today I did pretty wet. You can't really tell unless you're like looking at it, then you'll see that it's a bit more damp. So if I'm worried about the level of, there's not enough water, putting the starter in is going to fix that worry. Wet my hand, get this stuff in there. One thing about this, it's going to get loud because of the friction. So I do like to put a little bit of water on the bottom so I can spin it. Spinning is part of the process. I'm just grabbing it and folding it over and then turning. So I'm doing like, maybe move it like 2 inches every time I do this. So. And then when it starts looking pretty nice, I flip it and start over, and then it looks rough again. I just keep doing that until the roughness mostly goes away. So it's been 5 minutes now. 5 minutes of me just beating it up. Just make a nice ball. It's gonna rip, that's fine. So I'm making a nice little ball here. See, I'm just turning it and pull in, turn and pull in. So, okay, there we go. It's 2:11, so I'll come back at 2:40. Give it like 2:45, 2:50, somewhere in there. Probably 2:45, right in the middle. Let it rest for that time, and then we'll be back and we start our folds. All right. been about 45 minutes or so. Actually, take that back. It's been 35 minutes. I did my math wrong. It's like, but it's folded in. Has a nice odor to it. I'm gonna do the two-handed to begin with. So I'm just gonna grab it from both sides and lift it up. And then fold it on itself. And then do the same, going this way. I really want to just get it as smooth as possible. The point here is to try to make it so it won't rip anymore. We want to get the window pane test. So when you pull it, you can get it super thin. See how it's starting to rip a little bit there? On this camera, you should see it. This is my new fancy Sony camera. So I'm getting it to rip a little bit. I want it to stretch, because when you rip it like that, it builds the gluten. Or maybe when you're pulling it. When you're pulling it, it builds the gluten. I don't know if ripping it is actually going to build the gluten. But it sees that it rips, which is to be expected. This is the first fold. Looks okay. I made the face because it's like, wait a second, is it doing right? But yeah, there you go. Instead of doing a fold, I did a lot of those stretches and everything, but I put it back in a bowl. So it's sitting like this. Let it sit for 40 minutes or so. Back in the oven with the light on, so it's sitting at a decent temperature, sort of a warm temperature. And yeah, we'll be back. Fold number 2, trying to not succumb to the terrible darkness surrounding us all lately. And here we go, let's stretch our bread. Lost track of time. I was watching YouTube, just trying not to be overwhelmed by the world, and yeah, it's jiggly. It's nice. It's I think it's in pretty decent shape. But the last fold I'll do in 20 minutes or so. 30 minutes. Give it like 30 minutes. Then we'll go into shaping. Alright, it's relaxed a little bit. Third and final fold. It's holding together pretty well. I should, because air bubbles in, but that's just from me folding it. Let's do, that's kind of still ripping a little bit, but there's window, but that's the weight of the dough though. So you have to wonder, can you spread it like a window pane and then it rips a little bit. So, just try something different, just go against everything I've done so far. I feel feel that the window pane test is supposed to be like a good litmus test for whether or not you're in the right space as far as your bread goes, or your dough in this case, I mean. I don't know. It feels like it's still ripping a little too much. So I'm just folding it in, turning it and folding it, like making my hand like that to just fold it in. So, okay. It's a little bit stronger. Still some scratchy parts, some ripped parts on there. I think that'll be alright. Just put some extra move into it. I want to make sure that we're in good shape. So I'm going to give it like a half hour, and then we'll shape and get it in for proofing. Okay, got my Banneton here, got my dough ready. Everything looks like it calmed down a little bit. So I realized that you cannot see anything, so I'm just gonna lower this down. We're gonna have our space here. Okay, we're good to go. All right, this is set. Let me get something to wrap it up here. So, shower cap. Covered up. And I always forget to do it. This is the before. This is the before, and I should probably take a little over 2 hours to proof it. Like I said, it's a cool day, so it's good. Put it over to the side, and we'll revisit it in a few hours. Here we go. I think it's proofed okay now. Looks okay. So cover it up, put it in the fridge. Blender, crunch, let's get this thing on the road. All right, almost time. Let's get it out. See what we got. It looks pretty good on the when I took off the top, but we'll find out in a second. think it rose pretty nicely. It looks pretty good. It feels nice. There's a delicious odor to it. The flavor has never been an issue. I've never had an issue with flavor. I've only ever had an issue with, like, it did split a little bit on the side. In watching the Great British Bake Show, Paul said splitting was underproofing. I'm always underproofing because I've overproofed and it's just been goo. So I'm always scared of that. Anyway, this is set. Gonna let this sit for the day. It's 8:30 in the morning. I'm busy all day, so I'll get to this tomorrow morning. It's good to, and before I go to bed tonight, I'm gonna be gone all day, right? When this when I get here in the morning, or tonight when I get home, I'm in a hurry. I'm trying to leave right now. I'm gonna put it in the bag and put it up, and then in the morning I'm gonna cut it. But I'm gonna let it rest all day. It doesn't hurt it. It needs to get rid of this heat. So normally I wait at least 4 hours. So if I let it sit for an 8 or 9, it's not that big a deal. So I think I got a pretty decent loaf, and we'll see about it tomorrow. Looks pretty good, feels nice, has a nice odor to it, good size to it. Like, I don't have giant hands, but it's the majority of my hands, so that's a nice wide sandwich. So there we go. It came out pretty good. I think I'm getting closer. I think I'm dialing it in a little bit better.